Hey, glad you're back on the next session of Dollars and Cents here in Kaz's Corner. I'm your host, Adam Kazanik, Senior Wealth Manager of Convergent Financial Partners. Today we're talking about debt. Good and bad debt. We love to talk about this. Social media loves to talk about this. The news loves to talk about it. Let's get through all of the fog, all the haze, and figure out, okay, what are people talking about when they mention good debt versus bad debt? All right. So let's start with good debt. Easy way to think about it. Will this help me increase my net worth? Will this debt, will this loan, will this expense increase my net worth? I'm going to give you some examples of some of the most popular debts that people are taking on right now. First, one that's all over the news, student loans, right? A lot of people are not fortunate enough to go to school debt-free or graduate debt-free. So maybe you take on a student loan. If you believe that your degree that you are going to pay for and the cost of going to school 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 years is going to put you in a better financial situation, meaning a better opportunity to earn more, then that could be a good debt. Now, generally, these also come along, good debts also come along with lower interest rates. So historically, student loan interest rates are much lower than your credit card or a business loan and some of the other types of debts out there too. But again, is this going to increase your net worth? Is this going to give you an opportunity to make more money? Then generally, yes, it's probably falling in the category of a good debt. Another one I alluded to, business loan. You go out, you want to start a business, you go to the bank, you put together a business plan, and you go and apply for that loan. Well, hopefully the business is successful. Hopefully the business is going to generate you income. So pretty sure, yeah, it's probably going to fall in that category of this is going to raise your net worth. This is going to increase your inflow of cash. So probably a good debt. Again, if a solid business plan is put together, if you go and shop around at a few different banks and lenders, you may get a good interest rate too. So going to probably be under the, let's say, 10% interest rate. Next is going to be a mortgage, right? We go and apply for a mortgage. Yes, I know everybody's complaining interest rates are high right now. They're historically much lower than they are right now. They'll come down a little bit. You can always refinance. But buying a home, getting into a property, whether it's a mortgage for a rental property, hey, maybe it's a combination, business and mortgage, combining the two together, or it's your own primary residence. Either way, that's going to fall into the good debt category because you buy that property, you own that property is going to appreciate. It's going to increase in value over time. That is going to what? Raise your net worth. So good debts, mortgage, business loans, student loans, as well as investments that are leveraged. Now, this is going to go into a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but as I've seen on social media, the news, everybody posting about it too, all of these billionaires, all of these very, very wealthy people that are not paying any taxes, this is what they're doing. They are taking a loan against their assets in the form of investments. They could be stock options. They could be actual stock that they own. This is what they are doing in order to receive funds in the form of a loan against their assets. And guess what? Loans are not taxable. It's the same reason why we can get a mortgage and we don't have to pay taxes on the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 mortgage that we're getting to then buy the house, because loans are debt and debt is not taxable income. This is what's happening with those high net wealth individuals that have accumulated a large investment portfolio and they're able to then loan or borrow against it. All right. So again, just to run through the 4 types of good debts, these are not an exhaustive list, but the big ones: student loans. If you're going to go to college and think about it, hopefully you're picking a major and hopefully going to a school that's going to position you for a higher income job than you otherwise could have gotten without taking on the debt. Second is going to be a business loan. Starting a business, going to build that business plan, and hopefully that business generates enough income. Maybe it's a opportunity down the road where you sell that business and you have what we call an exit, and now you're coming into a large sum of money because you incurred that loan years back and grew that business. The next is going to be the mortgage, whether you're doing it as a primary residence or whether you're doing it as a rental property and you're combining the business of real estate and that loan. And then lastly is going to be leveraging your investments portfolio and borrowing against it. So again, those are the key traits. Things to look over. Are they going to increase your net worth? Do they have a relatively low interest rate? Maybe they provide some tax advantages, hence with the real estate, and maybe the loaning against your portfolio, because again, no taxes on those loans. Think about it as, is this considered an investment or just a purchase? Maybe that's another way to look at it as well. Now we're going to move over to bad debts. Now, bad debts are probably numerous and probably ones that you're already thinking of, right? What's the big one? Ding, ding, ding. Credit cards, right? We all love those different credit card brands. They tease us with their bonuses and their perks and their cash back and everything else. Listen, credit cards can be very useful. It's a way to float a little bit of dollars, between your paychecks and things. But number one rule, pay it off every month. You don't want to accrue credit card debt. Why? High interest rates. I've seen some credit cards into the 20+% interest rates. Okay. So that's just the stated rate. That's the APR. We'll talk a little about that in a second, but important to know what your interest rates are for these credit cards. You do not want to be overspending. All right. So that's the first one. Generally, credit cards are going to be used for the most part, purchases. So thinking about it as, is this a purchase? Is this an investment? Do I really want to be borrowing money at potentially a 20 cents on the dollar rate to go and make this purchase of what? A luxury good, pair of shoes, something that you're not going to be able to generate any money from. So unless you're flipping these products, probably not a good investment, right? It's just a purchase. Next is going to be focusing on personal loans, right? So maybe you go out and you do want to get something off the ground, but it's not considered a business. There's no business plan. Personal loans come with a very high interest rate as well. Are they available? Sure. Yes. Should you go out and utilize them? Probably not. I think it's probably easier for a lot of people to go and cut down on their spending, save the money, and then go out and put the money down yourself instead of asking a bank to do that. So that's the next one. Following, auto loans. Auto loans, potentially again, are you in a industry or in an occupation that you need a really, really nice car? I don't know. Arguably less now than in the past because everybody's doing remote work. But if you feel like you are in an industry that you need to show up in a nice car, it's part of the persona, it's part of the job itself, then yeah, okay, maybe you can justify it as a business expense. Maybe you could justify it as it will help your net worth. But remember, automobiles are a depreciating asset. As soon as you drive it off that lot, we all know what happens to that price, right? Literally 5 minutes later, you're getting maybe 40, 50% of what you just purchased it for. So again, you don't want to be incurring debt on these expenses, okay? Debt is going to be utilized to increase your net worth, start that business, get you that better paying job, all of those types of things think about before you incur any debt. Now let's talk about some of the specifics that come along with these debts. APR, we've all heard this, stands for annual percentage rate. Why is that different than compounding interest? And why should you know the difference? Well, compounded interest is, well, if you don't pay off that debt after the month or the year or whatever the time period is, that interest that accrued now gets added to the loan as if you took out more money on the loan. Give you a quick example, $100. APR is 18%. At the end of the year or at the end of the period, that $100 has accrued $18 worth of interest. If you don't pay that off, guess what the new loan becomes? $118. And then guess what? 118 is then charged the 18%. And now you've got a compounding problem. So important to know the distinction between APR, that's just the stated rate, and what that means from a compounding perspective if you're not paying that off with every segment. Credit cards, we all know those are going to be monthly bills, monthly statements, where a mortgage or some of these other business loans could be a lot longer. Maybe it's a percentage rate and then it's payment due, interest is due every year. Important to know when that frequency payment is due. It's important to know what that stated APR is. And remember, if you're going to incur any debt, let's think through, is this an investment? Is this going to help me get to a better position down the road? If not, then maybe it's just a purchase and you should think twice about it. Thanks so much for sticking around for this episode. We'll see you on the next one.